arisen in our midst. God has visited his people. Hallelujah. 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 The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. A leper came to Jesus and kneeling down begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." So, moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand, touched him, and said to him, "I do will it. Be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then, warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. He said to him, "See that you tell no one anything, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That'll be proof enough for them." But the man went away and began to publicize the whole matter. He spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people kept coming to him from everywhere. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Leprosy, or as we know it today, Johnston's disease, was a terrible thing. It was a terrible disease to get. All right? You had sores all over your body. It was very, very painful. You had a terrible smell because your flesh was rotting. You know, like sometimes for some lepers, their nose would fall off, or their ears, or their fingers, or toes, and so you always smelled like rotting flesh. It was just a horrible disease to have. And to make it even worse, if you had an issue, in the first reading today from Leviticus, you were banished. You couldn't stay in town. You couldn't stay at home. You couldn't stay in your community. You had to live on the outskirts of town. And anyone some came by, you had to yell, "Unclean, unclean. I'm no good. I'm nothing. Stay away from me." So it was very, very isolating. And medical knowledge back for the biblical Jews was nothing compared to what it is today. Right? And so they considered all kinds of little skin diseases as leprosy. So if you ever had a rash, if you even had acne, right? If you had eczema, if you had psoriasis, all of those things were considered leprosy back then. So if you ever had any of those, be thankful you didn't live in biblical times. Right? You've been banished. Right? And so it really was a hard thing, and to compound it even worse, the main prevailing thought of the day was that if you had leprosy, you would be punished by God. All right? You or your family did something terrible, and you are being punished. So not only do you feel bad physically, not only are you outcast and alone, you can't be with anybody, especially your friends and family. Now you have this guilt being thrown on you that you're being punished for some sin of you or your family. So really, listen, it's a horrible thing. And so I'm giving you all this background just to help you more fully understand what's going on in our gospel today. Okay? In the gospel, this man with leprosy comes to Jesus. Big mistake right there. Right? That man with leprosy has already broken the law. All right? Because he's supposed to be outside of town. He's not supposed to be near anybody. He's supposed to yell out, "Unclean, unclean." In the gospel, he doesn't do any of that. So he breaks the law. And I'm just wondering what the guy was thinking. Maybe, what can they do to me? I'm already banished. Or maybe, just maybe, he thought, I don't care what the law says. I believe that Jesus is going to heal me, and that he can make me whole. And so he takes that risk. So what does Jesus do? He breaks the law too. Right? He says, he touched them. Right? If you touch someone with leprosy, back then, you suffer the same consequences. You're automatically banished from the community. You can't stay in town. You can't be by anybody. Right? Kind of like COVID. Remember when COVID first came out? Everyone was afraid of being with anybody. Churches and everything was closed down. Schools were closed down. It was that kind of fear. Okay? It was that kind of fear that was going on with this leprosy. And so Jesus says, I do want you to be made clean. And so he touches her, breaking the law, all right, and says, be clean. And his leprosy left him. But this story is a lot more than just about Jesus healing the guy who was sick. Right? You go deeper. Have to go depth in this reading. And you see, this is a wonderful story about a man who's outcast, who's alone, who's rejected, and some people even consider him evil, because of this disease. And through Jesus, he is shown the mercy and the compassion of God. You and I have had little tastes of leprosy. You say, how's that? Well, have you ever felt abandoned? Have you ever felt ignored? Have you ever felt not listened to? If you have gone through those experiences, which I think all of us have at one time or another, then we have experienced the leprosy of rejection. Have you ever been betrayed by a spouse or by someone close to you? You shared a secret, you shared something in confidence, and that confidence was broken. You've experienced the leprosy of rejection. Have you ever felt excluded rather than included? Have you ever felt like you weren't wanted or welcome in a certain place or situation? Then you've experienced the leprosy of rejection. So all of us, I think, at one point or another in our lives, we know a little bit, we have at least a taste of what was going on in the gospel today. And here comes Jesus saying, I'm not going to worry about these rules. I don't care if I break the law. I want this guy to be made whole. I want this guy to be a part of the community. I want this guy to be welcomed back in. Sir William Osler, he was a doctor. He died in 1919. He was a Canadian doctor. He was one of the founders of Johns Hopkins University in medical school in Baltimore. Great doctor. His ability to diagnose quickly and easily was a gift from God that he used very well. His other gift from God that he had a great bedside manner. He was great, especially with kids. And in the last 7 or 8 years of his life, he moved to Oxford, England, and there he did great work. And that's where the royalty of England named him a Sir, knighted him as a knight. He was working in this orphanage/pediatric hospital, and he was making his rounds, and he goes into this one main room where all the kids were in. If they weren't contagious or anything, they always had like an hour or two of social time together. And he goes in the room, and he sees all these kids in a big circle. They're laughing and telling stories and just being with, having fun, being kids, All but one kid, this one little girl was sitting aside, apart, sitting on a couch. I had this old kind of doll in her hands. So Dr. Osler asked the nurse, what's with this one girl? Why doesn't she go with the rest of the group? So the kids don't like her. And the doctor said, why not? Well, she has no one that ever comes to visit. These kids always have somebody come visit, that their family. This little girl's mom is dead, and the dad came once and brought her that doll, and has never been back since. So the kids have figured out that no one likes her, that no one visits her, she's not likable, and so they don't like her either. And so Dr. Osler said, all right, let's change that. So you know what he does? While the kids, boys and girls, are in this little circle playing and having fun with each other, he goes over to the couch and sits next to this little girl. Her name was Mary, holding on that doll. It was like the only gift, the only precious thing in her life. And the kids in the circle started noticing this and everything. And he says, Mary, it's so good to see you. I wanted to visit with you for a long time. You know what Mary did? She beamed. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. Someone was giving her attention. Someone said they wanted to be with her. And she just beamed. And so he sits down and they talk and he talks in very quiet, hushed, almost secretive tones, so that the other kids couldn't hear him. And he checks out the doll, he takes a stethoscope and puts it on the doll's chest, as if to hear the heartbeat and everything. He says, well, Mary, I think your doll's in good shape. And I think you're in good shape too. And they have a little conversation, and Dr. Oscar had to keep going. So he gets up, and then he no longer speaking softly, he speaks in very loud tone so that everybody, all those kids can hear it. He said, now Mary, it's been wonderful to be with you. Remember our secret, and don't forget, don't tell anyone our secret. Mary peeped, full of joy, full of smiles and happiness. And so as Dr. Oscar was walking away from that room, he goes by the rest of the kids, and every single kid's pair of eyes was focused on Mary for the first time. It's like what Jesus says. When you feel abandoned, when you feel cut off, when you feel rejected, come to me. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened. I'll give you rest. I'll give you peace. I'll give you hope. One more little story. Bob Cassidy. He is an elderly man today, and he served in Vietnam. At the end of the war, he was 19, 20, 21 years old. He was there when the war ended, and so the government chartered all kinds of American U.S. airlines to come and bring all these troops home and bring home some Vietnamese, and also a bunch of babies, right, who were orphaned, who didn't have mom or dad, who were killed from the war. So Bob Cassidy gets on this plane, and right next to him was this little infant, all right, and strapped in a baby seat, tied to or buckled into the regular seat, and the flight attendant asked Bob, like all the other GIs, if if they have a baby or little kid, just keep an eye on them during this long flight from Saigon all the way back to the States. So he does. And Bob notices that this little baby, just tears are just flowing down her little cheeks. They're just flowing and flowing. But she's not crying. She's not making a sound, not even a whimper. And Bob thought, this is weird. I've never heard of a baby who just tears up and doesn't cry. Usually when a baby cries, you know the baby wants everyone to know that they're not happy, right? But it wasn't the case with this. And so he presses the call button. Flight attendant was nice. Man, I'm just curious. I don't know am I doing something wrong, or I don't know what's going on here. But this poor little baby, tears would just keep coming, flowing down her face, but she's not making a sound, not even a whimper. Is that normal? What am I doing? And the flight attendant just kind of half smiles and said, well, all these Vietnamese babies do that. They cry, but they never make a sound. Because they learned from the very beginning that no one is going to come to them. No one is going to hold them. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. So the point of this whole gospel, my friends, my fellow members, because we've all experienced some form of unreceived one way or the other, is that when you're ready to cry, and you feel alone, and you feel rejected, and you feel like you're not being listened to or ignored, let the tears come. Let the tears flow. Because if no one else, Jesus will come. Jesus will come. And he will bring a peace to your heart that nobody else could ever bring.